The first thing we want to do is look in Joshua chapter 10. Chapter 10, we may begin at verse 31. 10:31. Now, this is Joshua conquering the southern part of Canaan, right? And chapter 11 is the northern part of Canaan. 10:31. And Joshua passed from Libnah. Of course, you all know where Libnah is, right? Then we went to Lachish, which is an important city, a walled city. Fought against it and took it. The Lord delivered Lachish into the hand of Israel, took it on the second day, smote it with the edge of the sword, etc. Verse 33, Horam, king of Gezer, came to help Lachish. Joshua smote him and his people. From Lachish, Joshua passed on into Eglon, and all Israel with him. They took that. Verse 36, Joshua went up from Eglon, and all Israel with him, to Hebron. They fought against it. And everybody knows where Hebron is, right? And verse 38, went to Debir and fought against it and took it. Verse 40, Joshua smote all the country of the hills and of the south, the vale and of the springs and all their kings, and left none remaining, but utterly destroyed all that breathed, as the Lord God of Israel commanded. And Joshua smote them from Kadesh Barnea even unto Gaza, even unto Gibeon, or is it Goshen? All the country of Goshen, even to Gibeon. Verse 41. Joshua smote them from Kadesh Barnea even unto Gaza, all the country of Goshen, even unto Gibeon. Some of you, when Pharaoh gave the land of Goshen to Joseph, put this little Goshen down on your maps. You think Pharaoh gave that little town to Joseph? This little town was in a land of famine. That's why they went to Egypt. Pharaoh didn't give them a little town in the land of famine. He gave them a good spot. Now, the next thing that I didn't mention last time is in chapter 11. Giants lived in Canaan's land. And what was the name for the giants? Do you remember? Anakims. Verse 21, chapter 11. At that time came Joshua and cut off the Anakims from the mountains, from Hebron, from Debir, from Anab, and from all the mountains of Judah. They were in Hebron for sure, because we were told that story later, having to do with Caleb. And from all the mountains of Israel, Joshua destroyed them utterly with their cities. There was none of the Anakims left in the land of the children of Israel, only in these places, Gaza, Gath, and Ashdod. There remained giants. Does anybody remember where these three cities are? They're in the land of the Philistines. You remember where Goliath came from? Gath. So these are probably some of his ancestors. Goliath was, depending on the estimates, anywhere from 10 and a half on up, 12 feet, whatever. 10 and a half, I think, is tall enough. Man ought to be satisfied when he gets 10 and a half feet tall. I mean, it's taller than this 10-foot ceiling, and he was not a beanpole basketball player. He was big, well proportioned. But I wanted you to.
What kind of a beam was it he carried for his spear?
Like a weaver's beam.
Yeah.
I wanted to point that out to you, and I didn't last time. Chapter 12 lists the 31 kings that Joshua and the Israelites conquered. The number is given in the last verse. Then we begin in chapter 13 to divide the land up to the tribes. How did they divide the land? Jimmy, how'd they do it? Who did it?
They cast lot.
Who cast lot?
I guess Joshua and the priest.
Who was the priest now?
The priest was Eleazar.
Eleazar and Joshua are the two that divided the land, and they cast those Urim and Thummim, the lots, in the lap of the high priest I don't know how they read them. I don't know what kind of markings were on them, if any. I don't know anything about them other than their name. But there were two of them, two of these things, whatever they were. I don't know if they were like dice, or if they were long, or if they were round, or I don't know. We're never told. But they cast the lot into the high priest garment, lap, and God gave answers to which tribe went in which direction. So there had to be some kind of instruction from the Lord to Eleazar and Joshua as to how to read the lots once they were cast. And Joshua was old and stricken in years, and the Lord said unto him, Thou art old and stricken in years, and there remaineth yet very much land to be possessed. This is the land that yet remaineth. The first 6 verses tell us what the Israelites had not yet conquered of the promised land. All the borders of the Philistines. These Philistine cities over here, they didn't belong to the Philistines. They belonged to Judah. Ekron, I think I remember that. Ashdod was another one. Ashkelon. All those cities really belonged to Judah, but Judah never took them. And all of Geshur, Manasseh never took it. And Maacah, they never took it. Yo.
When did the Philistines come in?
The Philistines are a very mysterious group of people. A few years ago, you go to even a scholarly library and look up Philistines, there'd be a stack of books just that high right there. Nobody knew anything about them. But now I think they figured out that they came from the Greek culture, probably as a result of one of those massive volcanic eruptions in this area right here. Somewhere over in there, when they had like Thera, where a whole island was turned into a crescent-shaped moon because it blew up, or which may have been the eruption that ruined the whole culture on that big island of what's that, Bob? Crete. And the Philistines, they pretty much know now, came from that area to here. They've deduced that from their pottery, and archaeologists love pottery. They just don't know exactly when. But they were there Abraham's day. Wasn't, what's his name? Abimelech and Gerar, Philistine. So, it lists there in verse 3 the 5 major cities of the Philistines. They were actually 5 cities that belonged to Judah, but Judah just didn't have faith in God to take them. Those 5 cities play a significant role in 1 Samuel and a major event. In verse 4, from the south, all the land of the Canaanites, and Mearah, which ought to be translated the cave that is beside the Sidonians. So the Sidonians are way on up here. All of the Sidonians, it says somewhere in here. Unto Aphek, the border of the Amorites, the land of the Giblites, which is Gebal. They never went up to the. They never conquered up to the Euphrates River. You remember, that's the border of Canaan's promised land. Toward the sunrise, all of Lebanon, they never took that. From Baal Gad, this up there in the north, under Mount Hermon, unto the entering of Hamath, which is north of Mount Hermon. All the inhabitants of the hill country, from Lebanon to Misrephoth Maim, and all the Sidonians. And then he promises he'll drive them out if they'll just trust him, and they never did. There's another very detailed list in first, second chapter of Judges about which tribe did not drive out which section of Canaanites. And what we find out is that if you were to color in all the places where the Canaanites still lived, they're everywhere. The Israelites just they started marrying them and making deals with them, cutting deals with them, and they were just covered everywhere.
John, at this point in time, how long have they been in Canaan?
Well, it says Joshua was old and stricken in years. When do you start saying he was old and stricken in years? He was at least 6. Well, Caleb was 80 when they conquered Canaan's land, and he was 85 when they finished. So that's how we judge how long it took to do it, the whole job. But we're told Joshua was 110 when he died, but we're not told how old he was right here. Don't really know how far along he is when he's saying this. But we are told in several cases that They dwell among the Israelites unto this day. Whenever somebody copied this, they said, and they're still here. Such as in verse 13. The children of Israel expelled not the Geshurites from the Maachites. That's right up here in Bashan area. But the Geshurites and the Maacathites dwell among the Israelites unto this day. In chapter 14, these are the countries which the children of Israel inherited in the land of Canaan, which Eleazar the priest and Joshua the son of Nun and the heads of the fathers of the tribe of Israel distributed for inheritance. What tribe is Eleazar from, Julie? Eleazar the high priest. What tribe is he from? You cannot remember Eleazar the high priest? What about you, Kathy Bartow? Levi. All the high priests were Levites. What tribe was Joshua from? Amanda?
Ephraim?
Yes, right. Joshua was from Ephraim. So they divided the land. Verse 6 in chapter 14. Then the children of Judah came unto Joshua in Gilgal. This is where he was at that time. This is before they pitched the tabernacle at Shiloh. He was still camped at Gilgal. And Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, the Kenizzite, said unto him, You know the thing that the Lord said unto Moses, the man of God, concerning me and you in Kadesh Barnea. What did Moses say at Kadesh Barnea to Caleb and to Joshua? Darren, you remember? What book did he say it in? Sandy, you remember? Numbers. What about Numbers, Token? What happened that Moses said anything to Caleb and Joshua in Numbers? That Caleb would remember it 40, 50, 60 years later. Probably 45 years later.
Since they believed that God would take the land when the other spies didn't, that they could have the land that they saw.
That's right. He promised Caleb the land that he spied out. That's how we learn what Caleb spied out. We don't find out that Moses promised him that until Caleb tells Joshua 45 years later, but that's what he said. 40 years old was I when Moses, the servant of the Lord, sent me from Kadesh Barnea to spy out the land, and I brought him word again as it was in my heart. Nevertheless, the other 10 spies, my brethren that went up with me, made the heart of the people melt. But I wholly followed the Lord my God. And Moses sware on that day, saying, Surely the land whereon thy feet have trodden shall be thine inheritance and thy children's forever, because thou hast wholly followed the Lord my God. And now, Joshua, behold, the Lord hath kept me alive, as he said, these 45 years, even since the Lord spake this word unto Moses, while the children of Israel wandered in the wilderness. And now, lo, I am this day 80, that's 80, and 5 years old. And yet I am as strong this day as I was in the day that Moses sent me. As my strength was then, even so is my strength now, for war, both to go out and to come in. Now therefore give me this mountain, whereof the Lord spake in that day, for thou heardest in that day how the Anakim were there, and that the cities were great and fenced. Now he was not looking for a handout. He was looking for a fight. He was 85 years old, and he said, Give me this mountain. But the Anakim were still there. The cities had walls. He was not saying, he wasn't coming as a beggar. He was coming, making an offer to take that land if Joshua would give it to him. Praise God.
Amen.
If so be the Lord will be with me, then I'll be able to drive them out. He still felt like they could take the land. If Israel had been filled with people like this, they would have kicked out every Canaanite that lived.
You know, the whole time that we're reading up to this point, you've got in your mind they're going to go and take over the land. And then you start reading and realizing every time I read it, it was confusing to me when I kept thinking, well, why were the Canaanites still there? Or how were they still there? And it's finally just really sinking into me that they just allow them to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, because that's not what the intention was it?
No.
That's one of their first big downfalls.
Well, it was a mess from the beginning. They never did it right.
They never did it right from the beginning. They got in there just enough to get the fear of the people in control,
Right.
and then thought they could conquer them by dominating them.
It's the spirit of Achan. Instead of doing what God said, figure you had come up with a better plan. Make a deal with them. Cut deals with them. Don't destroy the cities. It didn't work. And Joshua blessed him and gave unto Caleb the son of Jephunneh Hebron for an inheritance. Hebron therefore became the inheritance of Caleb the son of Jephunneh the Kenizzite unto this day, because that he wholly followed the Lord God of Israel. And the name of Hebron before was the city of Arba, because Arba was the great man among the giants. Kirjath means city of, or city. Kirjath Arba, the city of Arba. And that man Arba was a great man among the giants, and the land had rest from war. Verse 13 of the next chapter tells more about Caleb's inheritance. And unto Caleb the son of Jephunneh he gave a part among the children of Judah, according to the commandment of the Lord to Joshua, even the city of Arba, Kirjath Arba, the father of Anak, which city is Hebron. Caleb drove away from Hebron the 3 sons of Anak, Sheshai, Ahiman, Talmai, the children of Anak. And he went up thence to the inhabitants of Debir. And the name of Debir before was Kirjath Seber. Yeah, Caleb, I'd like to meet him. He's 85 years old. He goes fights the army, the fenced city of 3 giants, takes it, and then says, that's not enough. Let's go up to that other city. He had faith in God. When we get to David's time, and he has his army and his captains and generals, but then he has his mighty men, 37 men, just incredible people. But one of them killed 800 by himself at one time. But what's incredible about them is not just the mighty things they did, is that they had faith in God to do it. They were men of mighty faith. That's what makes a man mighty man in Israel. One man killed so many people one day with his sword that, as far as we're told, he never could take the sword out of his hand again. Blisters popped, melted, he just couldn't take it out. I don't know if it ever came out or not, but we're not told if it did. And Caleb said, when they were going up to Kirjath Sefer, he that smites Kirjath Sefer, in other words, is the hero of this battle, and takes it, I'll give Achsah, my daughter, to wife. And Othniel, the son of Kenaz, who, by the way, is going to be one of the first of the judges in the book of Judges, first one, I think, the brother of Caleb took it, and he gave him Achsah, his daughter, to wife. And it came to pass, as she came unto him, that she moved him to ask her father a field. And she lighted off her ass that she was riding, and Caleb said to her, what do you want? Who answered, give me a blessing. You've given me a dry land, a south land. Give me also the springs of water. Well, he gave her the upper springs and the lower springs. How's that? He had faith. I love this guy. Caleb was a wonderful man. And if that hadn't been enough, he'd have gone and conquered another giant city. He was a wonderful man of faith. This is the inheritance of the tribe of the children of Judah, according to their families. I'm just hitting some things in here that you probably have not read. In chapter 15, we get the details of Judah's territory. Beginning in verse 21 is a list of, I'm just guessing, 75 cities that you didn't much touch on. And beginning in verse 45, you see Ekron, Ashdod in the next verse, Gaza, even all the way down to the brook of Egypt was supposed to be Judah's. In verse 63, it says an interesting thing. As for the Jebusites, the inhabitants of Jerusalem, the children of Judah could not drive them out, but the Jebusites dwell with the children of Judah at Jerusalem unto this day. Now, what makes that so interesting to me? Got any idea? It's interesting because Jerusalem didn't even belong to Judah. It belonged to Benjamin. So why would it talk about the children of Judah not being able to take it? I don't know.
John, when does Jerusalem become a county of Judah? Because it was in David's day, wasn't it?
It seemed like there was just a gradual population of Jerusalem by Judah. There's no time. Now, the Jebusites kept Jerusalem until David conquered it. Maybe since he was from Judah, they just claimed it for Judah. How could you do that? How could you claim another tribe's inheritance for yours? I don't know. There's never a moment that says God gave this city to Judah instead of Benjamin. But Jerusalem is a part of Benjamin's territory, not Judah's. Okay, let me see. Ephraim, in chapter 16, verse 10, did not drive the Canaanites out of Gezer, which is over toward Philistia. Several times the tribe got strong enough to force them to pay tax to them, or tribute, but they couldn't drive them out. Chapter 17, look at verse 11. Verse 11, and Manasseh had some cities within Issachar and in Asher, Bethshean and Ibleam, that's not far away, and the inhabitants of Dor, that's on the sea coast, and her towns, and the inhabitants of Endor, Dor and Endor, and Taanach, and the inhabitants of Megiddo, and her towns. Verse 12, but the children of Manasseh could not drive out the inhabitants of those cities, so all those remained in Canaanite hands. In verse 13, it came to pass, whenever the children of Israel were waxed strong, they put the Canaanites to tribute, but they did not utterly drive them out. And I love this conversation that follows here with Joshua and Manasseh and Ephraim. And the children of Joseph, which are Manasseh and Ephraim, spoke to Joshua, saying, why hast thou given me but one lot and one portion to inherit, seeing I am a great people, forasmuch as the Lord has blessed me hitherto? Listen to what Joshua tells them. Joshua, well, if you're a great people, then go get your land. I like that. Yeah, what are you talking to me for? Go get it. Take Caleb with you. Oh, if you be a great people, then get up to the wood country. Cut down thyself there in the land of Perizzites and of the giants, if Mount Ephraim is too narrow for you. And the children of Joseph said, the hill is not enough for us. And all the Canaanites that dwell in the land of the valley have chariots of iron. Both they who are of Bethshean and her towns, and they who are of the valley of Jezreel, they got iron chariots. You ever heard something like that before? Sounds like the unfaithful spies coming back, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Joshua spoke to the house of Joseph, even to Ephraim and Manasseh, saying, you are a great people, and you have great power. Thou shalt not have one lot only, but the mountain shall be for you. It is a forest. Cut it down, and the outgoings of it shall be thine. For thou shalt drive out the Canaanites, though they have iron chariots, and though they be strong. What difference does it make what they've got? We've got God. So Joshua and Caleb are still plugging away 45 years later, trying to get Israel to believe God. Praise God. Thank God for people like that. 45 years later, still plugging away, trying to get God's people to believe God. Amen. Chapter 18, God chooses Shiloh for the place to move the tabernacle out of the Jordan River Valley up to here. Verse 11, the lot of the tribe of the children of Benjamin. And the extra cities in Benjamin that you didn't deal with are from verse 21 on. Chapter 19, the second lot came forth to Simeon. Judah's territory was so huge that Simeon just had cities within Judah. So Simeon is inside of Judah, which fulfills the prophecy of Jacob in Genesis 49. He cursed Levi and he cursed Simeon. With what? He said, you're going to be scattered in Israel and divided within the borders of Israel, Jacob. Well, what's happened to Levi? He's scattered all over the territories with 48 cities, no territory of his own. Just scattered. What's happened to Simeon? just given peppered cities within Judah. So that fulfills the curse of Simeon and Levi in Genesis 49 by Jacob. And why did Jacob do that? Do you remember, Leah? Why did Jacob curse his sons, Levi and Simeon and Levi? Because they lied and deceived and murdered a whole city of men who were entering into a covenant with Jehovah. Well, now in Joshua, you see how it's come to pass. Now you've seen how Noah's curse on Canaan has come to pass, where when Israel was strong enough, they were servants to the servants of the priest. Now you've seen where Jacob's word has come to pass against Simeon and Levi. That's why it's important to know the book of Genesis, because it makes this a whole lot more interesting. You know what's going on. Verse 17, Issachar's territory. Verse 24, Asher. 32, Naphtali. 40 is Dan. They were over there in the northern part of what's north of Philistia along the coast. In verse 47, they thought their territory was too small. So they sent out spies. I think you read that story, didn't you, at the end of Judges? Where Dan went and conquered this territory up here, which is really pretty and fertile place. One of the best that we saw anywhere in Israel.
It's like a delta area, like ocean.
These are high mountains here, and these are big springs coming up out of the ground that start the Jordan River eventually into the Salt Sea. So it's a beautiful place. Verse 49 of chapter 19, they gave Joshua the city of Timnath-Serah. Here's Bethel. Timnath-Serah is there, real close to Bethel. That must have been the area Joshua spied out. That's what I'm figuring. Gave Joshua Timnath-Serah, and that's where they buried him when he died. Chapter 20, you got the cities of refuge. Got 6 of them now. And you remember what Moses told Israel? If they would obey God and take the rest of the land up to the Euphrates River, God would add 3 more. That never happened. Never took place. Chapter 21, the 48 Levitical cities, 6 of those were cities of refuge. Chapter 21, verse 43. And the Lord gave unto Israel all the land which he sware to give unto their fathers. And they possessed it, and dwelt therein. And the Lord gave them rest round about, according to all that he sware unto their fathers. And there stood not a man of all their enemies before them, and the Lord delivered all their enemies into their hand. There failed not anything, aught of any good thing which the Lord has spoken unto the house of Israel. All came to pass except what Israel couldn't believe God for. God was so good, they just couldn't handle it. Now, I want to read you a very sad story that you read, but you missed something. One of those stories you read at the end of Judges. Chapter 17. There was a man of Mount Ephraim whose name was Micah. And he came and made a confession to his mother. He said, Mother, you know the 1,100 shekels of silver that were stolen from you and you were so worried about? I took them. I'm sorry. I feel, my conscience is really getting to me. Here's your 1,100 shekels. I'm sorry. I don't know what came over me. And his mother at the end of verse 2 said, Blessed be thou of Jehovah, my son. And when he had restored the 1,100 shekels of silver to his mother said, I had dedicated all this silver unto the Lord from my hand for my son to make a graven image and a molten image. She had dedicated it to Jehovah so that it could be molded into an image to worship. You know what that means? That means that the Levites were not doing their job. The Levites had their 48 cities, but they were not teaching the people. Even the first 10 of God's commandments. Thou shalt make no graven image. 99%, maybe a little less, Let's be very conservative and say 95%. I think that's going to be pretty close to being right. Of the people in the ancient world could neither read nor write. They didn't have grocery stores to go get their food. Their whole lives were given to surviving. They didn't have clothing stores. Poor people were either naked or covered themselves a little with rags. Clothes were for rich people. And often enough, food was for rich people. So they didn't have time. Princes, some of them, in their leisure, if they had a little bit of dignity to them, didn't spend all their time drinking and carousing. If they cared about what kind of ruler they were becoming, they'd learn to read, write, study philosophy, history, whatever. But princes, not princesses. There was no need for a princess to know such things generally. Of course, some women did learn, read and write and other subjects. But just a few people, even priests would have known how to read and write. The Levites were supposed to. The ones that were judges, they were supposed to be able to teach the people. That's why they were scattered in all 48 cities, for that purpose, to judge people according to the law. One reason that Levites were so needed is because the people couldn't read the law. They didn't know what God said. 90% of the Israelites, at least, had no need to know the law. To be able to read it, I mean. As long as they had a Levite there doing his job. Because if they had a question, they'd go to the Levite. If he knew the law and was doing his job and wasn't out for money and was out to serve God, he'd tell them the truth. So the Levites, we know, were not doing their job. And we know that even the people that loved Jehovah were idolaters. Except for probably Joshua, Caleb, the usual tiny fraction who understood. So that's the first thing we learn about this story, is that we're dealing with a land that is grossly ignorant about God's law. So he restored the money to his mother. She took 200 shekels of silver, gave them to a founder who made a graven image and a molten image. So this looks like two things. And they were in the house of Micah. Verse 5, and the man Micah had a house of gods. Oh, he had a bunch of them. Made an ephod. Whoa, he's really religious. An ephod and a teraphim, and he even consecrated one of his sons, who became his priest. I tell you, you're dealing with a land of darkness. The Levites are not doing their job. In verse 6, in those days there was no king in Israel, and every man did that which was right in his own eyes, which is a way of saying everybody did wrong. Just a long way of saying it. Now there was a young man out of Bethlehem, Judah, of the family of Judah, who was a Levite. He was from Bethlehem in Judah, but he was a Levite from his forefathers. And he was journeying along there, and the man departed out of the city of Bethlehem, Judah, to sojourn wherever he could find a place. In other words, he went job hunting. And he came to Mount Ephraim, to the house of Micah, as he journeyed, and Micah said unto him, where'd you come from? He said, well, I'm a Levite out of Bethlehem, Judah, and I'm job hunting, looking for a place to live. Levite was like a graduate from the seminary. He's got a degree. Being a Levite doesn't mean you love and you know Moses' law. It means you've probably been at least a little bit trained in whatever was prevalent at the time, whatever spirit was going on then. And Micah said, well, look, stay here. Be a father and a priest to me. Look, I'll pay you 10 shekels of silver by the year. Your robes to do the worship in, your clothing, and your food. Throw that in. And the Levite heard the call. He felt he could help more people if he stayed there than if he just traveled from here to there. You always want to do your best for the Lord. So the Levite was content with dwell with when the poor man's son got kicked out of the priesthood in a hurry. He was toast. But this is a very sad story to me, not for any of that we just read, compared to what's coming.
Yeah.
In those days there was no king in Israel, and every man did what was wrong. And in those days the tribe of the Danites sought an inheritance to dwell in. Okay, so they sent spies, right? They sent spies to look for a place that the other tribes hadn't gotten yet, and yet wasn't within the borders of those other tribes. And they found a city up here of very peaceful, happy people. Of course they were peaceful and happy. They had water all year long. You live in, even along a lot of these blue lines in the summertime have nothing in them. I wish you could see my picture of right here at Beersheba. It's a blue line and you think there's water in it. Only when it rains, and it only rains during 2 seasons. I got a picture standing right in the middle of that blue line. Nothing. Not even the hint of water. Just rock. Incredible. Well, that's what most of these are. Not the big ones. Jabbok Rivers, that's water all the time. That's water all the time. Arnon River's there all the time. You know, there's some places. Kana probably has water in it. But a lot of these are dry wadis, what they call wadis. They're dry when it's not raining, wet when it is. And so these people have a place where all those springs are big springs coming up out of the ground. I mean, springs big enough for when we were there, busload of kids from school to get some relief come there and play in the water where the spring bubbles up out of the ground. We followed one of these little things back to see if we could find the very spot where the water sprang up, and I think we did find one place back in the bushes a little bit, but stood right about at the place where it burst up out of the ground. Great place, and they were happy people, contented people, had no walled city, had no army. They were just relaxed. And Dan wanted their place. So that's what happens in this chapter. The spies that Dan sent out from here, where they thought they had too little land, went up to there and said, well, this is what makes the tribe of Dan in 2 places. Dan doesn't move completely from down here. It's just the extra guys went up here. They could attack people that weren't prepared to fight, like the Amalekites, without a whole lot of faith. It took faith to take the territory God gave them. When they were on the way up there, guess whose house they went past? Micah and his newly hired seminary graduate. Verse 13, they passed thence unto Mount Ephraim and came to the house of Micah. Then answered the 5 men that went to spy out the country of Laish. Laish is up north, that place I showed you. And said to their brethren, do you know that there is in these houses an ephod and a teraphim and a graven image and molten image? Now what do you think about that? And the other guys from Dan said, well, I think I want it. What do you think about that? And they said, what do you think we were asking you what you thought about that for? So they turned there and came to the house of the young man, the Levite, unto the house of Micah, and saluted him. And the 600 men appointed with their weapons of war, which were of the children of Dan, stood by the entering of the gate. And the 5 men that went to spy out the land went up, came in to where that Levite was, that the man had consecrated to be his priest, and took the graven image, and the ephod, and the teraphim, and the molten image. And the priest stood in the entering of the gate with the 600 men that were appointed for weapons of war. He had heard the call again. And these went into Micah's house and got his carved image and his ephod and teraphim and the molten image. And the priest said unto them, what are you doing? And they said, you shut up. Lay thine hand upon thy mouth. Now, that's a nice way of saying it, isn't it? Go with us. Be to us a father and a priest. Now, think about this. Can you help more people being the priest to one house or being a priest to a tribe and a family of Israel? Can you bring more people to the Lord here than you can bring up north with us? And the priest's heart was glad. And he took the ephod and the teraphim and the graven image and went in the midst of the people, took off with them. He'd heard the call and took his furniture with him. Yeah. Maybe he'd already been praying about it. Boy, there's a nice graven image. So they turned and departed and put the little ones and the cattle in the carriage before them. And when they were a good way from the house of Micah, the men that were in the houses near to Micah's house were gathered together, and they chased after them. And they cried after the children of Dan, and they turned their faces and said to Micah, "What?" And this is the children of Dan that just stole his priest. Well, no. Gave his priest the opportunity for a higher calling, a more practical ministry, a deeper walk with God. And well, more money came in there, you know. That didn't, no. Had nothing to do with it. And these guys who have just robbed a man's house, taken his priest, turn around and say to Micah, "What's wrong with you?" That's what they said. What are you doing chasing after us with this company of men? He said, "You've taken away my gods, which I made." I know it. That's what's so funny. He said, "You're taking away my gods I made." Well, how are they going to help me now? It ain't fair. And the priest. And run away. And what else do I have left? And you turn around and ask me, what's ailing me? Actually, if he had had an understanding of the truth, he would have understood they were taking away the things that were ailing him.
That's right.
God may have liked this guy for repenting and taking the money back to his mother and sent the Danites there to rescue him from that junk.
Yeah, might not answer the prayer.
He's actually taking the curse away from him, taking it to them.
Yeah, taking the curse with them. He should have come after him and offered him something else. Thanks. I needed that. And the elders of Dan, children of Dan, said to him, "Let not thy voice be heard among us." In other words, you raise your voice again, and you're not going to have one left. Let not thy voice be heard among us. That's just a way of translating what's there. Lest angry, we got some people here that might get upset with you, and you lose your life and all your household. And Micah was just left standing in the road, and they just rode off into the sunset with the priest praying for God's blessings on them as they went. That's not the sad part. You hadn't even gotten to the sad part yet. And the children of Dan went their way, and when Micah saw that they were too strong for him, he turned and went back into his house. And they took the things which Micah had made, and the priest which he had, and came unto Laish, the people that were at quiet and secure, and the priest prayed for them, got in touch with God for them, anointed their weapons of war, may have sprinkled some holy dust or water on their horses as they went, and sure enough, it paid off. No doubt when they came back from their victory, they said, "I knew that priest had contact with God." And they called the name, verse 29, of the city Dan, after the name of Dan their father, who was born unto Israel. The city was Laish at first. And look at this next verse. This is the sad part. And the children of Dan set up the graven image, and Jonathan, son of Gershom, son of Manasseh, he and his sons were priests to the tribe of Dan. The entire history of the Old Testament till Israel was taken away captive. This man's sons were priests here at Dan. When I'm going to use the word Israel here in a way that you've never used it before in this class. Israel means the tribes up above Judah when we get into Kings. When Israel in the north divorced God, rejected Moses and the law, and the hundreds of years they spent without the law. These men, descendants of Jonathan, the son of Gershom, the son of what it says Manasseh here, were priests up there. When they first divorced Moses and the law, they set up a golden calf at Bethel, at the border, down here close to Judah. And they set up the other golden calf here. They had two major cult centers. And I've got pictures. They've uncovered this. I've got some wonderful pictures of this area right here, where the actual spot where they put up these holy places and put a golden calf here and here. We've got the pictures. They don't have the golden calf, but they have the altar. They have the area around the altar, the holy site. They have a bed made of stone for temple prostitution right next to the altar. But it's an archaeological site that they're reconstructing. And that's the second greatest religious center of Israel in the north, next to Bethel. And that's where this man and his family ministered to idols and lies to God's people from this time, which is about, let's just say 1300 BC, down to when they were taken into captive. I'd have to look it up, maybe 600 BC, about 700 years. Consecutive priesthood. Instead of having priests that descended from Aaron, these people had priests that descended from Jonathan. That's not the sad part. Every other version of the Bible will have this. Manasseh is not the right word there. Moses had a son named Gershom, right? This is Moses' grandson that's been doing all this. So, the people in Israel felt superior to the people in Judah who maintained God's way of worship at Jerusalem, because the people in Judah only had Aaron's sons as priests. They had Moses' sons as priests. Now, who was greater? It helped lock God's people into damnation to have Moses' sons be their priests. The word Manasseh there is one of those places where the King James just has it 100% wrong. And every version of the Bible that's ever been out there except King James will have Moses there, because that's the word. I don't know why on earth they put Manasseh.
Was that Levite Jonathan in the one that?
The Levite was Jonathan,
That was Jonathan.
Moses' grandson. That's just so sad to me. The priesthood from Moses' line instead of from Aaron's. And you know they felt superior. It's a madhouse already in Israel. Everybody doing what was right in his own sight, which means everybody was doing wrong. That's how quickly things can go bad. So Israel's rejection of Jehovah and his law in the north that's coming has a basis. It has a priesthood direct from Moses.